This last question says, assume the economy of John Srida is currently operating at a short run equilibrium and producing $350 million in real GDP. However, the full employment rate of output in John Srida is $300 million. So we're going to draw a correctly labeled graph of the ASAD model that reflects this information. I know this one may be a little confusing because we have a number in here, but if we remember that real GDP is located on the x-axis, and kind of just treat this as a number line, we should be fine. Price level is here. We got the real GDP. GDP. So it's saying we have two numbers. All right, we have the short run equilibrium is $350 million, and the full employment rate of output in John Srida is $300 million. So the full employment rate of output, it's kind of an interesting choice of words for this question, but what it's really saying is that in the long run aggregate supply, if we are at our full employment and reaching our full potential, we can make $300 million worth of real GDP. And if you remember from question 2, that the long run aggregate supply is very similar to that production of possibilities curve, where this line YF represents our potential, our maximum potential. So if we are fully utilizing our labor force, if everyone is working and we have full employment, meaning maybe 2 to 4% of the natural rate, our output is going to be $300 million. So this point, actually right here, we can go ahead and label. Let's see if I can, oops. Let's see if I can zoom in. Actually, we can just do a little this. We can label this 300 mil. Now, this also says, assume the economy of John Srida is currently operating at a short-run equilibrium and producing $350 million, which means we still need to draw our short-run aggregate supply and aggregate demand. And the question you have to ask yourself is, where are the short-run and the aggregate demand going to intersect? So if we look at some of these graphs up here, let's go to this one. Notice how in this graph, the short-run aggregate supply and the aggregate demand are intersecting right there on the long-run aggregate supply. And here this says Y1 equals YF. Take a look at this second one. We have the short-run aggregate supply and the aggregate demand intersecting to the left of the long-run aggregate supply. Y1 is less than YF. And then we have this one where the short-run aggregate supply and the aggregate demand are intersecting to the right, where this equilibrium is greater than YF. So your graph is going to look like one of these three. Your graph is either going to be describing an inflationary gap. Your graph is either going to be representing a recessionary gap, or your graph is going to be in that equilibrium, or that the long run equilibrium point. So those are your three options, and I would definitely maybe read a little bit more about what each of these graphs mean and what each of these graphs entail before drawing your graph down here for that very last problem.